And welcome, Raise Your Inner Game today. I'm David Levin. This is our Friday episode, so we're talking about the inner game of life. Tuesdays are for the mental game of sports and competition. Fridays are for the rest of our lives. So how is your inner game this week? How are you doing? I hope things are well and you're into a good summer rhythm, maybe taking a trip, not too stressed out. Things are good here, nothing much of note one way or the other. Finally got the lawn mowed. That was good. Actually, twice this week. Excellent grass growing weather this year, apparently. I actually do sort of enjoy the opportunity to get some extra steps in, mowing the lawn. I try to plan my mowing days for when I'm not doing other exercise, so I at least get moving a little bit. Otherwise, I spend a lot of time sitting in a normal day. Put in the chalk pickleball court. That was excellent. Very fun. Looked great. Put together the new net. It's going to be great also. Did not get to play. It was too hot and I was playing elsewhere. And then we got a rainstorm which washed it completely away. No court left, not even a hint of where it was. That was disappointing. Not surprising, I guess. Sidewalk chalk. I ordered some heavier duty chalk and plan to install version 2 hopefully this weekend. We'll see how that goes. Otherwise, continued summer goodness all around. So plenty to talk about today. A nice little self-mastery win I had this week. The amazing statement from 16 Nobel-winning economists. Trump's plan to cut back on education and public health. That's crazy. A helpful tool for developing self-mastery. A great challenge of the week to work on that, and some interesting recommendations and reviews. We'll start with ups and downs. These are the things that were lifting me up this past week and that were pulling me down, making life harder, other things that do that. In my ups column this week, the biggest thing is, and I can hardly even believe this, but I broke my news addiction this week, or at least made great progress with it. So all I did was establish a no news till 9 policy, meaning I can't check anything until 9 at night. Doesn't sound like that big of a thing, but I check the news a lot during the day. Not a main news site necessarily, but threads, like I used to check Twitter. I probably check that 20 times a day, maybe more. It's part of a little routine. I'm working, but then I check my email, I check threads, I come back. I take my phone to the bathroom, check threads. It's a constant part of my day. Plus, I read the actual news several times a day on top of that. Morning, midday, evening, night. Just a lot of checking. But for the past 5 days, I've broken that pattern. It's pretty wild. It's been hard, as you can imagine. The difficulty is, first, it's just a habit. I do it without thinking. But also, the habit is to satisfy a particular impulse, right? It's boredom. It's craving novelty, something newsworthy. When I can't check threads or read the news, it really throws off my other routines and rhythms. I have to find something else to do in those moments, or just live with the, doing nothing. That's been really interesting to deal with. But it's also definitely been good in every way. It's a big lift to resist that impulse over and over, to see it coming and say, nope, not going there. That feels good, except for the, okay, but what do I do now part. Also interesting, though, on the subject of how stressful things are lately, right, for all of us, I'm not giving myself that stress jolt constantly when I'm avoiding, when I'm not checking the news. And I can really feel and tell that difference. Tell and feel that difference, because when I do finally check in and read everything at night, my heart rate picks right back up. I can just feel it taking off. So this is a strong reminder of the stress effect this constant checking has and why it's so helpful to dial it back. Anyway, that's been pretty cool. I'm planning to stay with it for the time being, see how it goes, see if I can keep going. That's been very interesting. Next up, I had a bit of a breakthrough with my pickleball game this week. Man, I talk about that a lot lately. Just clicked into a higher level. For some reason, I played noticeably better, had more fun, to the point that I really think, happier and more satisfied than I may have ever been coming home after a league night. Just really notably uplifted and happy in a way I haven't been before this. I don't remember. I'm always happy to have played, but this was different. It actually put me into a better mood. That was really nice. Will it continue? Probably not. Not counting on it anyway, for sure. But that was a notable experience that I really enjoyed. Last one, also a pickleball adjacent. I bought a little item last week that holds a piece of chalk and attaches to a broom handle so you can lay down chalk lines without getting down on your hands and knees. I'm not going to do that anymore, you can be sure. So that was for, the pickleball court project. And it worked pretty well, but court lines are supposed to be 2 inches wide, and chalk is 1 inch wide. So I have to go over everything twice, which is, of course, not a big problem. But it occurred to me to reach out to the guy who I bought the first units from and just ask if he could put something together that would hold 2 sticks close enough together that I could make a 2-inch line, a cleaner line, in a single pass. The first units were clearly 3D printed, so I thought, maybe he could just do that pretty quickly and easily. We had a few back and forth emails looking at different options. Long story short, the new item is on its way, and it was just super fun working on that creative project, even though I was doing it sort of remotely, like through him, kind of. But that is the kind of thing I love the most, creative projects, and that was pretty fun too. All right, so 3 good ups this week. For the downs, first one is our daughter got sick. Not serious, just a fever, sore throat, typical stuff. But also has the typical worries and feeling bad for her and not wanting to catch it myself and doing all the little things that need to be done. Margaret was at work, so those were falling mostly to me. Just the general disruption that goes with all of that. Not a big thing, just a little extra load. Second one, also not big, is just that it's been a bit hot for me. I wanted to get out there and try out the new pickleball court, but I knew at that temperature it was just not going to be fun, right? Too sweaty, too hot, maybe not even good for me. So sort of a bummer there, just a little disappointing. There's such a narrow window of perfect temperature for doing things. Such fragile creatures we are, or I am, at least. Anyway, those are my ups and downs this week. Next up, top stories. The big one this week, by the time this comes out, of course, will be the presidential debate. But I'm recording this during the day on Thursday, so I have no idea how that'll go. Nervous about it, of course. Big time. Will not be watching. Too stressful. And honestly, it doesn't matter to me personally. I don't need to see it. I know what I'm doing, who I'm voting for, who I'm working for. Nothing about this changes that. But oh boy, I do think this is hugely important. There's so much riding on it. Incumbent presidents don't usually do well in their first debate. Biden has also noticeably slowed down. That's just being honest, right? He sounds old, he looks old, and that seems to be a big concern for a lot of people. So holding my breath, knocking on wood, but nothing to report on it. I'm sure I'll have plenty to say next week. Hopefully good. My goodness. There are more big Supreme Court decisions due today and tomorrow. Expect to not be happy about those either. More to say on that next week as well, because I don't know what they are yet. I guess the biggest thing on my mind this week, and I don't know if this got as much covered with everything else going on, but it's this big statement, maybe you saw it, from 16 Nobel Prize-winning economists saying that the Trump economic proposals are just a disaster. I'll post a link to the article I read in the notes. But basically, he's proposing, and this is just so crazy and ill-informed, 10% duties on all imports and a minimum 60% tariffs on Chinese goods. This is how dumb this guy is. First of all, 60% tariffs on Chinese goods means a 60% increase on pretty much everything Americans buy, right? The things we buy are made in China. When they're made here, they're still full of parts from China. iPhones, cars, computers, 60% increase on everything from China? Are you sure that's a good idea? It's not. According to these, again, Nobel laureates, they probably know what they're talking about. It's stupid as hell. It's a massive inflation bomb, like nothing we've seen. And because why? When you slap tariffs on things, you don't punish China which is probably what he's thinking in his childish mentality. You punish the people who are buying the things, right? It's a massive tax on pretty much everyone and would explode inflation. Here are a few lines from the statement. Quote, "We believe that a second Trump term would have a negative impact on the U.S.'s economic standing in the world and a destabilizing effect on the U.S.'s domestic economy." Another, quote, "Donald Trump will reignite inflation with his fiscally irresponsible budgets." Another, "While each of us has different views on the particulars of the various policies, we all agree that Joe Biden's economic agenda is vastly superior to Donald Trump." So, of course, there is no shortage of reasons to want Joe Biden over Donald Trump. This might not even be at the top of the list. I'm not sure it is for me. Reproductive rights, democracy, pardoning January 6th insurrectionists, Ukraine, all those might be higher on my list. But for a lot of people who support Trump because of his pro-corporate, tax cuts for the rich policies, this can make a difference for them. This puts the lie to him being a good steward of the economy. No business person wants inflation. No serious person thinks this is a good idea. And 16 Nobel laureates say it's a disaster. It's an inflation bomb. So my suggestion is to make note of this. File it away with all the other arguments against him. And if you find yourself talking to a pro-corporate Trump type, ask them what they think about this. Are you concerned about his big tariffs plan and the inflation that will come from that? You never know, but it's worth a shot. Every vote counts, and this group gives him a lot of money, too. One more election item. But Trump announced this week that he would cut education funding in half and deny funding to any school with a vaccine or mask mandate. I'll say that again. Cut education spending in half. Defund schools with any vaccine mandate or mask mandate. So measles, smallpox, polio, he'll bring those diseases back. No vaccines, no masks, half the funding. You simply cannot get your head around how dumb this guy is, how wrong-headed, and how dangerous he would be in a second term. It just doesn't even seem possible, but it is. And it would be hilarious if it weren't so tragic for the millions of people in this country who need a leader who cares about making their lives better. Trump cares about himself and his rich buddies. Biden cares about regular people and good government. And Democrats across the board are the same difference versus Republicans. We care about good government, good policies to help people improve their lives. Republicans are about themselves and their rich friends. And so we have to let people know and get them to vote for Joe. And that's a nice little rhyme, isn't it? Let them know, vote for Joe. Anyway, that's Top Stories. Next up, Inner Game Gold. Last week we talked about the Stoic idea, amor fati, love the fates, love everything that happens, good, bad, easy, hard. It's all part of our rich, beautiful lives. I actually find that very helpful. And again, I don't take it to mean everything is good and happy. Not at all. It's just that it's all life. And if you want to love your life, you have to love your life, right? You know what I mean? It's all one big, beautiful mess. So that's amor fati. This week, I want to talk about an idea from my book, Raise Your Inner Game and the Sports Academy Training. The idea is be the CEO of your inner company. If you've read the book or taken the training, you know this. But the idea is you're in a meeting, you're the CEO, you have all your division heads in there, and this is just my simplistic, cartoony vision of a corporate meeting, but they're all there, and they represent the three main aspects of our total being. So there's a VP of body, a VP of emotion, and a VP of brain. The VPs are all smart and helpful and valuable. You love them. You couldn't be successful without them. The only thing is, you don't want them to be in charge. You listen to them, you consider their input, but ultimately you decide what you do and say and think from one moment to the next. So that's a great way to picture what it means to raise and master your inner game. And I mention it now because of my story about how I stopped checking the news all the time this week. That's a perfect illustration of this inner CEO idea. The urge to check the news comes from my lower levels, my VPs. There's an unconscious pull for the dopamine hit of finding something interesting. That's a body impulse. There's actually another physical component just in the physical habit patterns. I always move in this same way. It just feels right to do that. There's also the drive to alleviate the boredom, find something interesting. That's an emotional impulse. A lot of that is emotional. And there is an intellectual impulse just to check in and see what's going on. And normally, I've been letting all of those be in charge. Some urge comes up, time to check threads. I just do it without thinking. And that leads to a lot of lower level things. I'm stressing myself out. I'm wasting time doom scrolling. I'm feeling bad about being so weak that I literally think I can't stop. Just really not one single good thing comes from it. So this week, I get a moment of clarity and strength. I say, could I just stop and not check until, say, 9 at night? And the answer is, I think I could. Let's give it a try. And then in all these moments during the day, I'm resisting all those impulses. And that is me being the CEO. I'm deciding in these moments what we're going to do. And to be clear, it's not that I stop hearing from my VPs at all. I'm hearing from them constantly, dozens of times a day in all different situations. We should check the news right now. But at least for now, I'm staying in control. Nope, we're not doing that. It can wait after 9. And I can tell you that feels better in every way. So that's why I'm thinking about this inner CEO idea this week. It's just a very helpful way to picture the basic dynamic of your inner game, the pull from your lower levels, and the posture you want to be in to resist that and stay up where you want to be. I hear from people all the time, this particular image, this CEO idea, very helpful. And having a good, memorable image helps you do the most important thing, which is, of course, to actually make the change, take charge. So anyway, if you're not familiar with that, or if you'd like a refresher, check out the Raise Your Inner Game book. There's a link here. If you play sports and prefer it in a sports context, check out the Sports Academy training. Either way, this is a very helpful piece of inner game gold to be the CEO of your inner company. All right, next up, raise your outer game. Last week we talked about the thing I've been doing where I basically talk myself out of feeling anxious by looking at everything I'm worried about and point by point realizing either it's not real or it's not a problem right now, and that it's been surprisingly helpful. This week I want to say a bit more about this No News Till 9 project. I talk about this in the book and the training with the idea of lifts and developing impulse control, but it is crazy powerful for your mental game. The big thing it does, the main thing that makes such a difference for your inner life, your inner game, your mental game, however you want to think about that, is that you are shifting from acting unconsciously to waking up and acting intentionally. When you let your lower levels lead and you just blindly follow your impulses and urges and appetites, that is all acting unconsciously. It's basically sleepwalking. But the moment you decide to step up and act intentionally to be that CEO of your inner company, you wake up. And that is the most profound experiential difference there is. Conscious versus unconscious, awake versus sleepwalking. So that's why this No News Till 9 thing is so powerful. And anything else like it doesn't have to be the news, doesn't have to be till 9, just have to be taking something you do habitually and starting to do it intentionally. And that leads us to this week's challenge of the week. So this week, I want you to try this out. Some variation of No News Till 9. So the challenge is, look for anything you do habitually, especially if it falls into the bad habit category, where it's something that's just not good for you in some way. And then set up some sort of time-based limit on it. Maybe not until noon. Maybe you can go every other day or several days not doing it. When I was trying to manage my sweet tooth, I would do a cheat day model. No sweets for 6 days. All you want on Saturday. Many different ways you could do something like this. The big point is to identify a bad habit and get at least some time every day where you take control, where you become the CEO. You decide when you do it, and you hold firm to that decision. Nope, not now, after 9, or whenever you decide. If you don't have a bad habit to work on, well, that's great. I'm working with 2 private coaching students right now, both quite young, like 12 years old, and neither of them say they have a bad habit to work on. A little hard to believe, to be honest, but I do believe them. Anyway, if you don't have one, that's great, but if you're like me and you do, see if you can't break it this week, if only for a bit. I think you'll really like what this does for you. I also recommend keeping a journal of some sort of your experience, at least for the first few days as you get started. I'm just writing in my notes app, short comment every day, how it's going. I find that very helpful too. Anyway, that's the challenge this week. Time-based bad habit avoidance challenge. Not a great title, but you get the idea. All right, next up, highly recommended. This week, a bit of a mix. First, here's something that almost never happens. I actually stopped reading a book. I can't remember the last time I did that. And this was super disappointing too because I had such high expectations. The book is called Eruption. It's by Michael Crichton and James Patterson. You might know that Michael Crichton has been dead for some time, so that's curious. Apparently he had an unfinished novel, and James Patterson finished it up. I've loved many of Michael Crichton's books. I just love that science thriller combination. He was great at that. James Patterson, I loved a lot of his books too. I thought this was a no-brainer, but it was just bad and obvious right from the start. The characters, just the way we were written, was so transparent and uninteresting, and one caricature after another. And by the time the story, was fully set up, I just knew it was coming. I just knew it. Huge crisis, existential, whole earth might, disappear, die. Someone's going to get killed being heroic. It's all going to work out in the end. I was just like, I don't want to waste my time on this. It's crazy, really, because, again, I almost never do that. And, of course, it's possible I'm wrong, and it turned and got interesting and ended up great, but I really doubt it. So I cannot recommend that one. Another book recommendation I haven't actually read. It's from the Pod Save America folks. It's called Democracy or Else. I'm sure it's going to be funny because they always are. I'm also sure it's full of practical things we can do to help defeat Trump, because that's the whole idea. Also, all the profits go to their Vote Save America program that funds races around the country. That's a really great program. And ordering early helps spread the word because of the way the bestseller lists work. So I haven't read it, but I have ordered it, and I highly recommend you do too, to get good ideas and to help the cause. Fun music recommendation this week. Part of my not checking the news project is not always listening to current events and political podcasts too. Just give myself a break from that. So when I was driving home from pickleball the other night, I thought, what would be some good chill music? And I listened to one of my all-time favorite records. Artist is Michael Franks. Record is Sleeping Gypsy. I just love that so much. It's very cool, jazzy in the best way, from maybe 1977. Lots of personal memories in there for me. But our whole family loves it too. Kids, Margaret, everybody. It's just great, assuming you like that style of music to begin with. Very sly, it's tongue-in-cheek, it's great writing, great players, very melancholy. No one does that vibe better than Michael Franks. Anyway, super highly recommended from me on that. Michael Franks, Sleeping Gypsy. It's a beautiful record. We finished up the last episode of Dark Matter last night. Super great. It was a huge task for them to figure out how to tie that crazy story up in a satisfying way, but they did it very well. Both Margaret and I thought so. The other Apple TV show I'm watching now is Sugar. I've been enjoying that all along, but it just got a lot more intriguing and interesting. That was a twist I didn't see coming, though it makes everything make more sense now. Very excited to see where that's going. And I just keep falling farther behind on shows. We still haven't seen Dune 2. Been trying to get to that for, I feel like 6 weeks or more. I still haven't started the new season of The Boys. I'm excited about that. The new season of The Bear, one of our all-time favorites, just started up. I guess I better get going. I've got some important viewing to do. So that is highly recommended for this week. Reminder again to check out the Raise Your Inner Game book if you could use some help with your mental game, or the Sports Academy training if you play sports. Links to everything in this week's notes. Otherwise, that's it for this week. Hope you have a great 4th of July. Keep up the good work. I will talk to you next time.